The stupid male stereotype relieves me of accountability. Chapter 1. I'm as emotional as any full human being. Manhood, why men won't open up. In the 70s and early 80s, men were trained to be sensitive wimps by the culture. Then the mood changed from both women and men alike, that men regain their masculine selves and move on to be tough macho dudes with a bit of gentleness and sensitivity, but don't go back to being little wimps who want to access their wounded inner selves, because that's not real. It's a product of cultural conditioning. You can be both, a tough guy full of conquest and a gentle guy dedicated to love without being a sniveling wimp about it. Women are wired to want a protector, which means a strong guy. It's a primal thing. You can be a provider by doing some wimpy job like a bureaucrat, but at the very heart of it, she wants the strong warrior hunter type. In some animal packs, only the alpha male breeds with the chicks 'cause he's got the best seed. Us Homo sapiens aren't that far off from this in our primal states. Women want alpha males over and above the little wimps who might have gotten rich working nerdy jobs. There's no primal attraction there. Living in a macho culture most of my life, I've come to see manhood around men as a very superficial thing: achievement in the world, status on the job, the size of your muscles, your car, how much of a party animal you are, how many beautiful women you can get, and most importantly, keep a stiff upper lip no matter what. Never ever betray too much emotion, creativity, weakness, negative feelings, fatigue, loneliness, depression, discouragement, problems, or anything that makes you look like a wimp or less than a cool, tough dude. When men talk to you, another man, they don't want to hear your woe is me crap. Everybody's got a sob story, but real men never talk about them. They just act cool and casual like everything's alright, and this is the universal code of man-on-man relations. Just shoot the breeze about casual things for a few minutes and leave it at that. Every man has some angst inside due to a life unfulfilled in some way, so we have this inner turmoil in there all the time. Put this on top of the man who has domesticated himself by deciding to raise a family, and you got a bunch of frustrated men walking around, keeping their true selves in, trying to grin and bear it. I wrote a book about my life, A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment, where I deal with these feelings of mine to live a totally free life. I'm not judging anyone, just trying to be honest in reporting life as I see it. Most men are secretly frustrated because they're not the people they really want to be. Money can't do it, nor position at work. The only way to get it is to live totally freely doing what you want, but most of us have to live in the real world with bills and responsibilities, so we have to sacrifice some of our true primal natures for this capitalist, domesticated life out there, which I say is not the real us. The psychobabble psychologists will all tell you that being a real man is taking responsibility by working a job, raising a family, etc., but I say this is the domesticated definition of a man. A real man is someone like an Alexander the Great, Vincent van Gogh, Samuel Hearne, Arctic explorer, Paul Gauguin, or a Captain Cook, adventurers and life explorers true to themselves, a rare commodity in the modern world, which is why most men are secretly frustrated all the time, because they didn't have the guts to dare to live a lifestyle true to their inner thoughts, which takes risk and uncertainty. My definition of manhood is to acknowledge my self-centered nature but realize I don't matter to anybody, nor will people like me if I'm selfish and aggressive, so I temper myself to channel my aggressions into something positive to help people that will net me money and make me friends if I want them. A real man does this in his own original way, charting his own course, not necessarily just taking a job prescribed by the system. The archetype of the strong man is a mixture of Zeus and Apollo, the strong, compassionate, moral father figure mixed in with the young, vital, noble princely type of guy, both the adventurous nature of youth and the tempered wisdom of age. And if you're really cool, you will be the swashbuckling Adonis type, handsome god of love, and Dionysus, the god of partying and debauchery. Manhood is living the art of life you feel within, as opposed to letting yourself get beaten down by the world, becoming a cynical, miserable person. Real men go out into the world on their own to forge their own lives, as opposed to simply going along with the system and taking a prescribed career all set up for them. They strive to challenge themselves all the time because this is what keeps life interesting, to deplete every last ounce of inherent energy in their souls in a positive way for themselves and for the goodness and beauty of the world. This is my definition of true pure manhood, kinda like Prometheus inventing fire. Even though he was punished severely for it, he still couldn't compromise his true inherent self. Be your real self both in your relationships with people and in the way you live your life, and don't bow down to any stereotypes out there. These are the heroes in all our stories and movies, adventurous originals trying to be true to themselves in a world of conformity. This is the kind of guy women read about in romance novels, even though the reality is that these men are rarely monogamous. If a man is like this and monogamous, he's the type of man that women want. Other men will respect him regardless of whether he's monogamous or not. They might be jealous but can't deny that he's being a real man. If a man ever gives another man a half semblance of a sincere compliment, then it's a big deal. That man represents all other men. It shows you're doing something right in the eyes of other men. A lot of people define Bill Gates as a winner because of his money and status out in the world, but if you observe him closely, you can tell he's unfazed by it all. His life was to go for a great ride in the computer industry. It was a great, interesting, inspired experience for him. I was really impressed when Oprah asked him how he wanted to be remembered, and he said he didn't care if he was remembered or not. That's a real man, somebody living for the experience of his own journey who doesn't particularly care about all the games people play around him. Books about manhood are at hashtag 155.632, hashtag 158.128, 305.31 to 305.38, BJ 1601 and HQ 800 HQ 1090.3 at the library. The emasculated male. The emasculated male is any man who does not live by his true nature. When you live by your true nature, you know who you were born to be and what you must do every day to honor yourself. Honor yourself by releasing most of the energy from your free spirit, which is your true nature, with love and gusto for the process every day to honor a standard you should feel within yourself of who you were born to be. Everything else is the bullshit of the world. If you follow other people's ideas, you are at least somewhat emasculated. Whatever you spend your time on is who you are. If you watch silly TV shows, that's who you are. If you play video games a lot, how do you expect to be a serious-minded macho man who wants to do something great to change the world? You don't do great things by being a mook. The one-dimensional man. Most men live quiet lives of desperation. Another unhappily married man who's not really aware of his unhappiness. Brooke McMurray, Live and Let Love. All those tough guys who want to scare the world into seeing them as men, who don't know how to be a man with a woman, only a brute or a boy, who fill up the divorce courts, all those corporate raiders and rainforest burners and war starters who want more in hopes that it will make them feel better, are suffering from father hunger. They go through their puberty rituals day after day for a lifetime, waiting for a father to anoint them and say attaboy to treat them as good enough to be considered a man. Frank Pittman, Man Enough, 1993. Enlightenment is for a man to accept the female aspects of himself. Do men want a strong emotional connection? If you watch any dating show on TV, the men on there all say they're looking for love, but it's not so simple that we all want a deep emotional connection with a soulmate because we're all sexual hedonists by nature. Most men will not get the kind of intimate love they really want. It's easy to play dumb by acting emotionally shallow, and if you observe men in general, you'll see that over time as they age, they gravitate towards being loners even if they're married and have friends. I think that as you age, you've already seen it all and don't care anymore, plus older men are thrown on the scrap heap too. Nobody wants us. We don't fit in anywhere anymore. The great passion for a man's life is not women or money or toys or even his children. It's for his male, macho sense of masculinity, i.e., his ego. Every man in a westernized, capitalist culture bred on competition and conquest lives by this silent code whether they realize it or not. Men are easy to figure out. Society tells us to be macho, tough, cool, silent and one-dimensional. This is the archetypal role the powers that be at one time chose to cast men into, probably to make them more manageable and insecure, feeling they had to prove their manhood all the time by doing the traditionally dangerous risky things like hunting the wild animals with primitive spears and fighting in the many wars that men have fought with each other since the beginning of time in order to plunder one another and get power over them. Competition is what has reduced the definition of man into a macho clown. I don't think we're born this way. I was pretty cooperative and friendly as a kid, but looking back on it now as I grew up, it felt as though societal forces reinforced by my brainwashed parents, teachers, and peers were always prodding me to compete with other men in sports, academic grades, the size of my muscles, the size of my ding-dong, how cool my car was, the perceived status of the job I held, the beauty of my girlfriend or the number of girls I conquered, so to speak, the size of my house, and so on and so forth. So when I occasionally watch the politicians, the tycoons, and the other so-called VIPs on TV playing their war games and games of conquest, I can't help but go back to memories of my school days to see a bunch of kids still playing their adolescent games of competing with each other. They never grew up. Very few men grow up to be at peace with themselves and the human race, therefore cooperative and friendly with other men in an open, real, unpretentious way. Life is very simple. You're born pure with a pure heart that's sensitive, creative, loving, and capable of experiencing the entire realm of emotions, even the tender ones. The testosterone makes you active, adventurous, and curious, but it doesn't necessarily make you aggressive, competitive, antisocial, power-hungry, or egotistical. It makes you territorial, but for me this means I work for what I have, it's mine. I don't care what you do or what you own. I don't want to compete with you in the illusory standards set forth by society, but if you interfere with my life and try to take what's mine, I will do what I must to protect my interests. These are things society has thrust on you to keep you on your toes as a hunter, soldier, and breadwinner by making all men subtly, silently always compete with each other as to who's the biggest, baddest alpha male in the room. At some point in time, the wise old elders had to get the young bucks to fall in line with what they wanted, so they encouraged them to always try harder to upstage each other for the admiration of the girls and the respect of other men to reach the final goal of bettering the community. This is the way I see it. In order to create obedient, strong but insecure men who always felt they had to prove themselves, the tribe indoctrinated all the men to be a bunch of macho, one-dimensional soldier warrior hunters competing with each other for status in the community, which is what it needed in order to get food and protect itself from hostile tribes. If men were allowed to grow up to be who they really are, you'd get a bunch of friendly, creative, relaxed, fun-loving, sensitive guys, but they make horrible hunters and soldiers, so that was definitely out. Men had to be trained to be one-dimensional studs for the survival of the community, always feeling inadequate that they don't measure up to the ideal of the tough heroic type, so they're doomed to spend a lifetime of anxieties always trying to prove how tough and manly they are. The modern one-dimensional man can't get too emotionally close to other men, has to always silently compete with all other men as to who's the biggest and baddest, can't show tenderness to his sons, has to pass the stiff upper lip tradition onto them, can't get too soppy with women because it looks wimpy, can't open up enough to have a great emotional relationship and great intimate love, and has to focus all efforts at being the best hunter, breadwinner, as he can be to achieve worthy status in the tribe. If you're free-thinking, creative, or choose to express yourself in any way other than the traditional men's ways of working on their cars, their houses, their computers, sports, or their jobs, you're often perceived as a sissy fagwimpod ball. Ask men what they think of male dancers or poets. If you don't express your creativity and emotions somehow, even with your dog, you get stressed out and frazzled, which is the way a lot of men are by virtue of keeping it all inside all the time. You have to express your gentle, creative side even if you do it in private, painting pictures and talking gently to your dog within the confines of your home. If you don't, you will suffer the universal disease of almost all men, a life of quiet desperation, pressure cooker always on the verge of exploding, brought on by keeping it all in. A lot of fathers pass this lifestyle onto their sons by not talking to them much, just pushing them to achieve things out in the world, always pressuring them to run over the next hurdle regardless of anything inspired they might want to do for themselves. It's all about achieving things for status sake and money out in the world, so a lot of boys grow up to strive to express themselves through achievements at the expense of what's in their souls and real human relationships. It's all about a superficial achievement-oriented exterior over straight open communication, even though inside, you're the same sensitive person as any girl out there. Men are trained to be independent lone wolves and never acknowledge an emotional need for anyone. Over time, this eventually leads to the tough, alienated superficial exterior that so many men have. Not all men are like this, but when I found myself talking to old friends I hadn't seen for years, I assumed that they had mellowed out with age, but they were still playing the same macho ego games we were playing in our 20s, trying to impress each other with how worldly we were, how successful we were, how much drugs we did, how many women we had, how many exotic places we traveled to, etc. Forget about being real. You can only go so far with most men. The rest is keeping up that tough, got it all under control, laughing at the world persona even if you're dying inside and your life is a mess. The solution to this conflict to follow your true heart over your macho conditioning is to first accept yourself for who you are. Do what you feel and want regardless of whether it flies in the face of the manly stereotype. Support your fellow man, don't just try to put him down to build your own macho exterior up. Be real enough to be your real self. Don't automatically try to be the alpha male, bully, boss, leader, in every situation. Most situations don't need a leader. You can achieve the mission through mature, cooperative effort, or there doesn't have to be a mission, you're just there for a good time. Develop your creative nature to create something of beauty, truth, and honest emotion. Be more honest with other men and women about your true feelings. Don't silently compete with other men in the status, money, power game of life. Cooperate, be a team player. Try to feel what other people are feeling and relate to them. Don't try to own your wife. Be her friend, try for true moments of honest joy with her. Be a lover as opposed to a sex addict. Don't hang around with the boys too much playing those one-dimensional macho games. Don't let yourself be influenced by the tribe of one-dimensional men out there all trying to prove to each other how manly and tough they are. Try not to be Jekyll and Hyde, try to be a relaxed, nice guy all the time. Try to be a fair person who respects others. Try to get rid of your ego in order to live for soul. Try to be a good father who talks tenderly to your children and treats them with full emotions. Follow what you feel in your soul as a full human being. Don't keep score. When you play golf, don't write your score down. When you play hockey or baseball with your buds, just do the time, don't keep score. Books about the one-dimensional male are at hashtag 155.632, hashtag 305.310 or HQ1090 at the library. Real men don't cry. As far as I'm concerned, you can cry in private, but to cry in public, especially over something stupid like a sports game, is another sign of a lost society. I saw this guy who made up this balloon boy charade in 2009 cry when he got sentenced to 3 months in jail, and I'm thinking if he cries for that, he ain't a real man. It's not just the stiff upper lip of holding it back, it's your attitude to life. Everything has to roll off no matter how terrible it is. It's the only way to live. I respect the dead when they die, but dying is a part of living. One song is Don't Cry for Me Argentina. The other one is a song by Chris de Burgh where he's saying don't cry at my funeral because there's life to be lived. He still lives in the spirit of everything living. I'm not brainwashed by patriotism or anything like that. I can't cry for my country because I'm a citizen of the world. You don't cry at weddings, at the birth of children, or when soldiers die in combat, because this is all a routine part of life. You have to stay stable and keep an even keel because somebody has to. There are already enough flakes in the world. It's got nothing to do with being sensitive, humble and well-rounded. I can be affectionate and empathetic without being a crybaby. My relatives and ancestors are and were down-to-earth, hard-working people. Most of my relatives from youth went through World War II. After that, they can't cry for all this trivial crap people cry for nowadays.